Looking back on the past, I know you've been through so much. Endless work, extra classes, unavoidable social activities, countless moments of frustration and heartache. You can't count how many times you've complained that work is exhausting, feeling disheartened and thinking, I don't want to do this anymore. You know you don't like this work, but next month's food money, next month's rent, aging parents, young children, such reasons don't allow you to quit. When you hear encouraging words out there, go pursue your dreams, do what you love. We feel a surge of motivation, but immediately after, it's still a sea of uncertainty. Many people genuinely don't know what they truly like to do, and they're unsure if it's even a dream worth pursuing. So, facing work they don't enjoy, many just clock in, swipe their cards, and wait for quitting time, not bothering to give their all, just doing enough to get by, and waiting for payday. This cycle of repetition leaves you feeling tired, bored, and even miserable. The truth is, life is incredibly short, but not all of us can pursue our dreams. There are too many obstacles and anxieties that make us feel life is meaningless and devoid of purpose. So, what should we do to overcome this exhaustion? How can an ordinary person make life valuable? How can we experience a life worth living? To this most perplexing question of life, a woman in her 90s offered an answer. She is Nakamura Sunek, the author of the book I want to share with you today, This Precious Human Life. The original Japanese title roughly translates to The Habit of Reconciling with One's Heart and Doing All Things Well. Nakamura Sunek is one of the most senior psychologists in Japanese history. Born in 1929, she worked diligently and tirelessly for 70 years, and at 90, she still had no intention of stopping. She wasn't a professor, nor had she published any academic papers. In fact, she was very ordinary. Perhaps, by many people's standards, she had no qualifications to publish a book, and it wasn't even necessary for her to do so. If an ordinary person writes a book, the content might resemble chicken soup for the soul. Honestly, before reading this book, I too had my reservations. But after reading it, I was incredibly surprised because I knew I could learn so many profound life philosophies from Mrs. Nakamura. She's a woman who experienced the dust of war and the changes of the era, seeing through all the intricacies of life for over 90 years. Yet, she remained vibrant and fresh, ultimately able to say that she has no regrets, even if she were to die. This Precious Human Life is like a small philosophy book about how to live, written with 90 years of life experience. It offers sincere advice on work, relationships, and happiness, guiding you through difficult stages of life, and ultimately making you realize that no matter what, you can absolutely live a valuable and worthwhile life. Working for money is natural. There's nothing to be ashamed of. An old saying goes, people die for money, birds die for food. But often, the attitude toward working for money can lead to either negative or positive outcomes, truly depending on our mindset. Mrs. Nakamura was born in rural Japan, one of 5 siblings. Her father was an ordinary elementary school teacher. With many children, not everyone could attend university. Like other families in her village, parents often favored their sons. As a daughter, she didn't even have the right to choose her own life. At 16, she faced 2 paths: marry or become self-reliant. At that time, Japan had a severe shortage of psychologists. Her uncle, who ran a clinic in Osaka, said he would cover all tuition fees for anyone wanting to become a doctor. Young Nakamura saw this as an opportunity to study without having to start laboring early. So she decided to leave her hometown for Osaka. She eventually passed university entrance exams, completed her studies, and became a doctor. From her experience, it's clear that choosing to be a psychologist wasn't due to personal interest or passion, but simply because she couldn't refuse the opportunity life presented her. Deep down, she didn't like the job, but she had to continue working to support herself and her family. Also, if she didn't become a doctor, she didn't know what else she could do. Because of this, her inner world was filled with conflict and suffering. In contrast, her 2 younger brothers had much easier lives, supported by their parents, doing what they loved and earning high salaries. Faced with such different destinies, she was filled with resentment but also powerlessness. In reality, many of us share the author's circumstances. We dislike our jobs but rely on the income to survive. Not everyone who finishes high school knows what they want to do. After graduation, we struggle to find a job, get hired, and then realize it's not a good fit. There's no perfect job in this world. Every job comes with unavoidable pressures. To secure an order, you might have to smile, bow, nod, and try your best to deal with the most difficult clients. To get a full-time job, you have to rush into morning rush hour, rain or shine, and dare not miss a single day, even when sick. Every job has aspects that make us unhappy. However, when people are pushed to their limits, they might suddenly feel a sense of relief. Nakamura soon realized that if dwelling on "what is the purpose of this work?" only brings discouragement and suffering, then it's better to firmly tell herself, "I'm just working to earn money to support myself." Working for money isn't a bad thing, it's perfectly natural. In over 70 years of psychological counseling, Nakamura heard countless complaints from patients. They were frustrated and tired of their current jobs, but in reality, they didn't know that the reason work caused them such suffering was because, from the beginning, they didn't understand the true nature of work. The author states that no matter what the job, humans fundamentally work to live. In other words, supporting oneself and one's family is the primary, core purpose of work. You see, we spend more than half our lives working. If we have overly high expectations or weigh things down too heavily, we'll easily become disappointed and anxious. And when we're bound by things like salary, status, reputation, or recognition, we blindly care about others' opinions, tones, and gazes. We'll fret over anything that makes us uncomfortable or dissatisfied at work. Over time, you'll become suffocated and exhausted. If this situation continues for decades, sooner or later, your job will consume you and drown you in a sea of suffering. The author advises that people don't need to place too many expectations on their work. Whether you're a new employee or a long-timer, don't overthink the tasks your boss assigns, just try to do them well first. When you frown and think, "This job isn't right for me," no matter who you are, it will only increase anxiety and make you unwilling to continue. Therefore, no matter what task we encounter, we should maintain a "try it first" mindset. Don't give up too quickly. See it as an opportunity to hone yourself. Even if you can't love the work, at least remove the thought of hating it from your mind and try to do it as well as possible. Before turning 88, Nakamura worked 6 days a week, and every day she was busy. Many people saw this and assumed she loved her job, but in reality, that wasn't the case. In her 20s, she worked to support herself. After marriage, work became the foundation for building her family life, so she absolutely had to keep working. She went through decades with this mindset, day after day, and work became a part of her. It allowed her to gently go with the flow, letting life unfold as it should. For her, the exhausting thoughts about not having a suitable job were completely unnecessary, because in a person's life, the probability of finding a job you love is like winning the lottery. Instead of constantly worrying, "I haven't found an ideal job," it's better to work diligently at your current one first. Who knows, one day you might find a more suitable job. In truth, the secret to whether life is valuable, interesting, or boring lies entirely in whether you are willing to reconcile with yourself. Faced with destiny and no other options, it's better to gently accept, find joy in your work, and be enthusiastic about your profession. Remember, we don't work to seek recognition. Work is simply about earning money to continue experiencing life. When you are 70 or 80, you will realize that wins and losses, glory or decline, are just fleeting clouds. They do not represent your worth. Many things are more important than those: family, health, your inner self. To have food, clothing, a warm home, and a job to support yourself, that is enough. After work, striving your best to complete the tasks at hand and contributing to those around you, without expecting recognition, might bring wonderful surprises on your next journey. Sometimes you need to decisively leave. In reality, many people are still struggling to maintain their current situation. "I'm not young anymore. If I quit now, what about my elderly mother and young children? So I have to continue. What will the environment and benefits be like at the next company? Can I find a better job than this one?" As soon as these thoughts flash, the decision to quit is put on hold. Nakamura advises us that if there's no way to change a situation, then work happily and diligently. But if you are truly too exhausted and have the option to choose, then decisively leave. Among her patients, some were bullied at work, some were harassed by superiors, and some didn't even have time to sleep, working until midnight. What's astonishing is that these people refused to quit, even when physically and mentally exhausted. If you feel too depressed by your work environment and your health is declining, don't hesitate. Decisively stop at the right time. Ultimately, the nature of work is to earn a living. A company or organization is a tool for others to earn money. If this tool excessively binds your precious life, then it's truly not worth wasting your time. However, there's one thing I want to emphasize. As said in many previous videos, many people advise you to pursue your dreams and do what you love, but don't blindly chase after emotions. You can make an active choice when you are fully prepared and ready to take responsibility for all the outcomes of your decision. If you quit your job without knowing how you'll eat next month or pay rent, or if you decide to leave your current job to open your own business without definite capital, having to borrow money and pay interest, then that's not full preparation. Just as the book, Side Hustle, about the mindset of a side income points out, the way to prevent work from becoming chains binding your life is to run yourself like a company. Don't rush to immediately abandon your main job. From a business perspective, this is an extremely dangerous action. A company cannot rely solely on one product as a source of income. Typically, a company has a fixed income source and then uses that money to develop other products. It's the same for running yourself. Your salary is the stable income for your entire company. You should take good care of this income source, and then, leveraging its stability, develop a second income source or save money so that in the future, you have the time and conditions to develop another job. Therefore, bravely breaking free from your current fixed job can also be a motivation to change your life. However, you need to have full responsibility and preparation before making that decision. Otherwise, happily accept your current situation. Any legitimate job can earn money, but no job can exhaust you. The only thing that drains you is your own mind. Don't force yourself to live, relax and go with the natural flow. In swimming competitions, we often hear spectators cheering, "Go, push harder." People mistakenly believe that by exerting all their strength and plunging into the water, they can overcome its resistance and quickly reach the other side. However, dynamics prove that the more force you use, the slower you go. The nature of water is that it returns as much force as you give it. Life is like a river. If you are gentle and relaxed, you can move forward more easily. In Yuki Takahashi's book, Life Doesn't Need Excessive Effort, there's a very true saying, there are two common regrets in life. One is not doing what you could, and the other is exerting too much effort. Effort is a prerequisite for success, but excessive straining can backfire. After reading this book, you'll see that the author lives with wonderful ease. This gentle going with the flow allowed her to experience over 90 years of a life worth living. So, how can one gently glide with the current of life, effortlessly moving forward without straining? According to the author, first, discard unnecessary baggage. Nakamura believes that the unnecessary baggage making your journey heavy and difficult is expectation. The first piece of baggage to throw away is excessive expectation of yourself. Others can do it, so I must achieve it too. I must succeed to bring honor to my family. In reality, the deep-seated reason you try your hardest to meet your own expectations is that you admire someone else's life or constantly compare yourself to others. When young, setting expectations as motivation to work hard isn't bad. But as we mature, we must learn to understand ourselves and gradually let go of the idea of always wanting more and more. Because whether it's a life of advancement or a simple life, a life with children or a single life, if you only compare yourself to others, you'll never find the right answer. As a psychologist, Nakamura clearly saw that many patients, outwardly living admirable lives, actually harbored unspoken pain within. One successful company owner was physically and mentally exhausted, facing relationship problems and indescribable loneliness. Another young, beautiful woman with a talented husband and well-behaved children suffered from insomnia because her friendships crumbled due to envy. Yet another young woman married into a wealthy, prestigious family, but felt heartbroken due to troubles with her mother-in-law. In her over 70 years of interacting with diverse fates, she profoundly realized that those who appear more prosperous and successful outwardly often endure more complex personal relationship pressures than ordinary people. Life's troubles do not disappear as wealth and status increase. Therefore, instead of admiring others in comparison, forcing yourself to achieve this and that, which leads to anxiety and suffering, it's better to accept your current circumstances and optimistically step forward at your own pace. Nakamura believes that others have their lives, and you have your own trajectory. Throughout her more than 70 years of work, she never compared herself to others. She didn't care if a younger doctor in her unit held a higher position. She wasn't resentful if a colleague treated patients better than she did. She believed that life satisfaction is not determined by outsiders, and she never pursued a life like anyone else's. Only by doing this can we live a life truly our own and worth living. The courage to be disliked states that whether we go first or last doesn't matter. The truth is, we are all on a path without a vertical axis. We constantly move forward but don't compete with anyone. Value lies in continuously surpassing ourselves. When a person truly lives according to their own values, not forcing themselves to fulfill many expectations because they admire someone else, then even if they only emit a faint glow like a firefly, even if they can only illuminate a small corner of their life, that life is truly precious. Beyond self-expectations, the second piece of baggage to discard is expectations of others. If only my parents treated me better. Why don't my children listen to me? Why does he always do things like this? Such desires will always be a messy tangle occupying your mind. At 27, the author quickly married through an arranged match. But later, living together, she discovered her husband was an alcoholic. Whatever money he earned, he spent on himself, leaving her to shoulder the family burden alone. In Nakamura's time, divorce was rare, and children of divorced parents were criticized. For the happiness of her children and her own physical and mental health, she had no choice but to adjust her mindset. She lowered her expectations of her husband to a point where simply standing beside each other and speaking at their children's weddings was enough for them to still be considered married. After setting such a goal, she was completely able to relax. In her, you'll see patience, distinct from mere endurance. She said life often requires patience. If you understand this truth, you will no longer try to endure but will think about how to make yourself more comfortable. When her second son turned 5, she returned to work at the hospital and asked her parents to look after her children. But after her parents took control of the household, other problems began to arise ceaselessly. The grandparents insisted on deciding how the grandchildren should be educated. They also invited Nakamura's younger brother, who was studying at university, to live with them, leading to constant conflicts between her and her husband and her parents. With overwhelming work and a chaotic home life, anyone would break down if they demanded too much. At this point, she could only lower her expectations of others and set limits for herself. In the worst-case scenario, achieving just a slightly below-average level was enough. She didn't expect her children to be perfectly raised. She didn't expect her career to be outstanding. She didn't pray for her parents and husband to have a harmonious relationship. She just needed to reach a level slightly above average and let the rest unfold naturally. Eventually, this difficult period passed. Within 10 years, she became an excellent psychologist professionally, and her children all grew up well. Later, when her children were married and had their own children, her husband, as he grew older, became gentler and even a good grandfather. It's true that we all wish for a harmonious marriage, a happy family, 3 delicious meals a day, and peaceful seasons. However, the life of an ordinary person is often precarious and full of chaos. Faced with this reality, we cannot strongly resist it but can only let things flow by lowering our expectations of others. Don't make it difficult for yourself, and don't force those around you. The law of this world is, if you seek the top, you get the middle. If you seek the middle, you get the bottom. If you seek the bottom, you get nothing. When expectations aren't met, greed, anger, and delusion arise. Therefore, stop wishing, lessen expectations, and don't fantasize that everyone and everything will go your way. This is the wisdom of living a valuable life. In fact, the best way to easily shed the burden of expectations is to live with low desires and embrace solitude. Nakamura was a person who pursued nothing beyond the most basic necessities of life. She dressed neatly and politely, never carrying expensive handbags or wearing luxurious accessories. She didn't pursue delicious food and had no desire for shopping. She said if you and your family are healthy, full of energy, and have a close friend to talk to, you don't need anything more luxurious. Having lived through so many years, she clearly understood that in this world, no environment or person can satisfy you 100%. Even if you enter what you consider the most ideal workplace, after a while, there will be things that frustrate you. Even if you marry the person you believe to be the most perfect and happiest, later there will still be things you find difficult to accept. In reality, whether it's parents, family, friends, or lovers, others don't always care about us. Even a child you love with all your heart will become independent and start their own life as they grow up. Even someone you pour your heart into loving can leave you. So, for all the people you meet in this world, and all that you wish to hold in your hands, the best way to harmonize is to rejoice when they come and let go when they leave. In 6 lectures on solitude, it says, solitude is the beginning of a complete life. If you have no experience of being alone, you won't know how to harmonize with others. Perhaps forcing yourself to shed some baggage will make you feel insecure and afraid of being alone. But when you embrace solitude, you will no longer expect too much from others. With fewer desires, you won't bother comparing yourself to others. In this way, your life will be less bound by chains, and you can live freely, harmonizing with yourself and those around you. No matter what you encounter, everything is valuable. One of the quotes that stuck with me from this book is, "Life is a journey that only goes forward and never turns back. Therefore, be grateful for every scene you see on this path." This is also the life experience I've accumulated over many years, to be grateful for everything that comes and goes in life. Living with gratitude, no matter how hard or boring your work is, you will cherish every moment. You'll be grateful that at least this stable job allows you to sustain your life. Living with gratitude, you'll also have a keen sense of trust and appreciation for the warm, flickering lights in life. As Haruki Murakami said, "You must remember those who covered you with an umbrella in the heavy rain, those who quietly embraced you in the dark, those who made you laugh, those who talked with you all night." Whether they are people who care about you or strangers you've never met, you will engrave in your heart the ways they helped you. You will remember their presence and contribution that helped you continue to experience this life. Whether what you receive is bitter or sweet, you will no longer resentfully dwell on gains and losses when others ask you for petty, excessive favors at work. Just try to do your job well, contribute to those around you, and become a trustworthy person in work and life, and you will prove what the English writer Ruskin once said is absolutely true. The best thing we can do for others is ultimately the best thing for ourselves. However, you need to be aware that you should proactively take on tasks, not intentionally try to please others. Sometimes, you need to recognize if you are truly helping someone achieve something, and then know how to refuse at the right time. Finally, when you live with gratitude, you will no longer sigh at difficulties but will instead thank these challenges for sharpening your will. Nakamura believes that everything has 2 sides. Painful experiences are meant to broaden human nature, just as muscles need to be trained and stretched. Life's rewards will not appear immediately, but in every moment, there is surely something we need to cherish. Be grateful for life, without expecting it, and no matter what, you will see that this world is precious and that we are living a life worth living.